Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening and welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm Sam Albanese from the National Weather Service. To start with, in today's weather, we do have a high wind warning that's about ready to expire in our western Aleutians out in that Shemya area for wind gusts to about 75 miles an hour. So what's been going on that's responsible for this? Well, we do have a large low pressure system, as you can see on our satellite imagery here. We'll put it in motion, and you can see this big storm here, and was causing those strong wraparound west-southwesterly winds. Very gusty scenario there. And then when we put the loop in motion again, this is the next system that's going to come up and impact the Aleutian Islands. Cause some windy conditions, but not nearly as strong as the storm system that's already gone through, and that front extends all the way down through the Unalaska area. Taking a look at our GOES satellite imagery over the state of Alaska, southeast Alaska, with having a wet and somewhat windy day today. As you can see with this low pressure system that was moving in across that Dixon entrance region, southern southeast Alaska, with it generally rain, a little bit of a mixture of rain and snow further to the north, but in the southern panhandle, rainy type conditions. Run the loop one more time, and you can see pretty much it stayed in southeast Alaska. We did get a portion of the front rotating on up toward Yakutat. And then across the remainder of the state, as you can see, there was a lot of cloud cover over the south central region of the state. While there wasn't a lot of cloud cover above the fog, it was rather foggy over the Cook Inlet region on up into the Anchorage area, and with that fog there was some flurries as well. So here's our map today over southeast Alaska. There's our storm system that was producing the rain in the Panhandle. Mixture of rain and snow further to the north and up towards Yakutat. Some cloudy conditions throughout Prince William Sound. Some flurries and light snow over the eastern Alaska Range. Cloudy conditions throughout much of the interior. Some snow over the eastern Arctic coastal areas as well as the eastern Brooks Range. And then here's our big system out into the Bering Sea with the front extending down through the eastern Aleutian Islands, the Unalaska area. Some rain in advance of the front across the western Alaska Peninsula, as well as the Pribilof Islands. And then behind this system, well, between the main low pressure system and the secondary low, a break in the precipitation, although there was likely some showers in that area, as you can see with the clouds there, and then rain with that next low pressure system coming up into the western Aleutian Islands. Taking a look at the forecast for tonight, our low in southeast Alaska is going to continue to move on to the east, so we'll see the precipitation ending in the southern Panhandle as well as the remainder of southeast Alaska. Generally cloudy conditions with some foggy conditions in the Cook Inlet region on up into the Matanuska-Susitna Valley area. Expect some scattered snow showers across the interior from the Tanana Valley right on down into the Kuskokwim Valley, with this front moving on up into that Bristol Bay area and Kodiak Island. Rain spreading to southwest Kodiak Island, likely all the way across the island in the overnight hours. Snow in the Bristol Bay area, as much as about 2 inches is what we're expecting there. Some snow or snow showers up into the Kuskokwim Delta, and then also snow north of this front across the Bering Sea. Behind the front, basically where this front's at is where your freezing level is. South of the front and the Pribilof Islands, rain, which will be coming a mixture of rain and snow showers towards the morning hours. And here's our next system coming up into the Aleutian Islands, and that's going to cause some windy conditions, as it does have a relatively tight pressure gradient, as well as rainy conditions. Taking a look now at the forecast for Wednesday, we'll have this low pressure system in the northern Gulf of Alaska. Southeast Alaska, the low is gone out of the Panhandle. Cloudy conditions there. Around this low pressure system in the northern Gulf of Alaska, rain and snow right along the outer coastal areas of southern Prince William Sound. A mixture of rain and snow showers across Kodiak Island. Snow in the northern portions of Prince William Sound, as well as the western portions of Prince William Sound. Likely going to see a couple inches of snow accumulating in those areas. Bristol Bay is going to continue to see some snow through the at least the morning hours, become showery by the afternoon. Some snow into the Kuskokwim Valley with snow showers as we move on over towards the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta. Across the interior regions of the state, the eastern interior right on up to the Arctic coastal areas, there's a chance of snow during the day Wednesday for all of those areas. Generally, sunny conditions can be expected. Well, not sunny conditions, seeing how the sun isn't coming up north of the Arctic Circle. Clear conditions over the Kotzebue Sound area as well as the Seward Peninsula. In the Bering Sea, still have our large area of low pressure. It is weakening. This is going to continue to produce showery type conditions throughout much of the Aleutian Islands and the Bering Sea as these pulses of energy rotate around the main low pressure center. Taking a look at the forecast now for Thursday. Pretty benign conditions in the Gulf of Alaska. Weak low pressure along the North Gulf Coast. Expect a mixture of rain and snow in Prince William Sound region to the Yakutat area. Chance of rain in the southern Panhandle with a chance of snow or snow likely in that northern Panhandle region. Chance of snow in the eastern interior. We do have this trough of low pressure from our main area of low pressure in the Bering Sea, extending right on up into the interior, basically along the Yukon River Valley into the upper Yukon Valley. And along that trough is where you're likely going to see some snow showers on Christmas Day there. Chance of snow along the eastern Brooks Range and much of the Arctic coast. Clear conditions can be expected in the Kotzebue Sound area. And then we have yet another low pressure system moving on up into the central to western Aleutian Islands. And with that, expect another shot of winds in advance of it, as well as rainy conditions. Taking a look now at temperatures around the state today. Southeast Alaska, temperatures generally in the 30s to near 30 to near 40. Along the North Gulf Coast in the 30s, the south central region in the 20s as you move on up into the interior, the Copper River Basin and the eastern interior, single digits above and below zero were prevalent throughout the day today. Moving on up towards the Arctic coast and the Brooks Range, temperatures in the single digits below zero along the Brooks Range, as well as single digits above and below zero along the Arctic coastal areas, right on down into that Kotzebue Sound area, as well as the Seward Peninsula and Norton Sound region. And then as we move on towards southwest Alaska, temperatures were a bit warmer right along the near Bristol Bay and the Gulf of Alaska, in the teens and 20s to the 30s across the Alaska Peninsula, low 40s in the eastern Aleutian Islands there in Dutch Harbor, mid-30s in the Pribilof Islands, and mid to upper 30s across the remainder of the Aleutian Islands. For your low temperatures tonight, expect temperatures generally in the low 20s to mid-20s in the northern Panhandle to the upper 30s as you move on to the southern Panhandle. Along the North Gulf Coast and the south central region, temperatures generally in the teens and 20s. As you move on inland north of the Chugach Mountains into the interior regions of the state, temperatures in the minus teens, minus single digits right on up through much of the interior to the Brooks Range. Minus teens will be prevalent along the Arctic coast to Kotzebue Sound, and then over the Bering Sea coastal areas of the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, single digits to the teens to near 20 in Bristol Bay, 30s across the Alaska Peninsula, as well as the Aleutian Islands and the Pribilof Islands. For your high temperatures tomorrow, expect temperatures in southeast Alaska in the mid-20s in the northern Panhandle to the mid-30s to the south, mid-20s to low 30s along the North Gulf Coast to 40 by Kodiak Island to near 40 across much of the Alaska Peninsula. Cooler as you move inland, single digits above and below zero throughout much of the interior to the Brooks Range. North of the Brooks Range along the Arctic coast, generally expect your temperatures to be below zero for the entire area. Southwestern Alaska, temperatures generally in the teens to low 20s until you get down to Bristol Bay in the 30s there. 40s across the Alaska Peninsula, upper 30s in the Pribilof Islands, with temperatures in the 30s across the Aleutian Islands. For our flying weather tomorrow, some marginal conditions to IFR conditions in Prince William Sound as well as the Bristol Bay area and the Alaska Range. Marginal conditions throughout much of the Bering Sea and the Aleutian Islands, and marginal to IFR conditions over the northeast interior to the eastern Arctic coast to the central Arctic coast near Barrow, marginal conditions. For our passes, expect marginal conditions for Anaktuvik as well as Adigan Pass. Moving on down to the Alaska Range, IFR conditions for Lake Clark, Merrill, and Merrill Pass, as well as Rainy Pass. Marginal conditions as you move on up to Windy Pass, as well as Isabel Pass. Over to Mentasta Pass, likely going to see VFR conditions there, as well as Tonita Pass, expect VFR conditions as well. Down to Portage Pass, IFR conditions, and then southeast Alaska for Chilkoot and White Pass, expect VFR conditions tomorrow. Freezing level, generally at the surface throughout the majority of the state to about 2,000 feet in the southern Panhandle to 2,000 feet over the Alaska Peninsula and around 1,000 feet across the Aleutian Islands. For our icing tomorrow, expect isolated moderate rime icing from your freezing level to 15,000 feet just off the coast of southeast Alaska. Isolated moderate rime icing from your freezing level to 11,000 feet as we move on over to south central Alaska and Kodiak Island, and then out into the Bering Sea around our main area of low pressure. Isolated moderate rime icing from your freezing level to about 8,000 feet across that region. Taking a look at our jet stream for tomorrow, it starts out at about 160 knots coming off of northern Japan, 150 knots south of the Aleutian Islands, tapering off to 90 knots as it comes on up into the North Gulf Coast region, and then accelerates to 100 knots as it moves over the California coast area. Down to the 9,000 foot level for your winds aloft, expect generally 20 to 30 knot winds across southeast Alaska, 15 to 20 knot winds over the south central region, 20 knot winds generally across the majority of the mainland portion of the state, and stronger winds right around that low pressure system in the Bering Sea, 50 to 55 knot winds right around the low pressure center, a bit lighter as you move on up into the northern to central Bering Sea, 25 to 35 knot winds there. For the 3,000 foot level, expect your winds to be 40 to 55 knots right near your low pressure center, to 35 knots as we get over the eastern Aleutian Islands, 15 knots across the Alaska Peninsula, and generally light winds over the mainland, except for just south of the Kenai Peninsula, and light winds over southeast Alaska. And for your turbulence tomorrow, some isolated moderate turbulence over Kodiak Island below 2,000 feet. Out into the Aleutian Islands, expect widespread moderate to occasional severe turbulence across the central to western Aleutian Islands. That wraps up this portion of the show. Enjoy the segment and come back for the marine forecast.
Welcome everyone to Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Jim Peranto, and in the studio today I have Eric Stevens, a forecaster from the Fairbanks Forecast Office, and he's going to be talking to us today about lake effect snow showers and lake effect snow showers in Alaska. Welcome, Eric. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Jim. Thank you.
Glad to have you down here.
Glad to be here.
Well, I brought you into the studio today to talk about lake effect snow showers and a case study that you worked on. And I thought it was fascinating the first time I heard it. I thought we should share this with the viewers out there. Let's get a little background about lake effect snow showers, and for that matter, snow showers in general. What is a snow shower, and how is that different from, let's say, plain old snow?
Right, that's a great question. And you know, the snow showers are different from snow, just like in the summertime, rain showers are different from rain. Consider the Fairbanks perspective. I come from Fairbanks, and so I have that experience.
Right.
But in the summertime, typical interior Alaska day, say in June, where the sun comes up early, and there's a mostly clear sky, but by afternoon, puffy clouds developing probably over some hills, and then in the afternoon, or in the early evening, you get a sudden cloudburst, maybe even some lightning or some hail. Rains, it's showering very intensely, but then it ends relatively quickly, after 20 minutes, half an hour maybe, and then it's done, and perhaps the sun will come out again. This is the nature of showery precipitation. It's highly variable in time. It can start and stop quickly. Also, you'd find if you're driving a car, say, that you could drive from a sunny area through an intense shower, back into sunshine, maybe through another shower, and then into sunshine again over the distance of just a few miles. That's the way showers are. They're spotty. They come and go, and they're spotty. Now consider that as opposed to, say, late August in the interior of Alaska.
Right.
You know, time for the Tanana Valley Fair, when you have gray skies from horizon to horizon, and it might rain lightly for several hours. May rain harder for an hour or two or three. It could rain all day. This is what we would call stratiform rain, the more flat sky, constant kind of rain. So there's, we see the contrast.
Right.
Showers, spotty, they come and go. Rain, more constant. The same thing can happen with snow.
Okay.
We're used to having snow be a longer duration affair, but you can have snow showers that come and go. They'll develop quickly. You could even call it a snow squall maybe, where the visibility goes down maybe to near zero in heavy snow. And you'd think if this keeps up for long, we're going to be buried in a glacier before long. But then it might taper off pretty quickly, just like an afternoon thunder shower in June.
Now, that's a good description of snow showers. Now, if we start throwing the term lake effect in front of that, because we hear this a lot down in the lower 48, especially near the Great Lakes, lake effect snow showers. Now, what's that all about?
Right. The lake is critical for these snow showers down in the lower 48 around the Great Lakes. Basically, the lake provides two things that every shower needs, and that is a source of low-level warmth and a source of moisture. In the wintertime, Lake Superior is not exactly something you'd call warm. If it's 34 degrees or so on the lake water, no one wants to go swimming in that, but it's warmer than the air above it. And that's what's needed for a shower, too, is thermal instability, having warm air underneath colder air upstairs. And so then the atmosphere will tend to overturn. That's convective showers. The lake also provides the source of moisture. The moisture evaporates off of the lake and helps fuel those clouds. And it's that moisture which comes from the lake that turns into snow.
So essentially you need those two ingredients to have the lake effect snow shower. You need the moisture and then that cold air riding over the relatively milder temperatures of the lake.
That's right.
Okay, now these things are forming over lakes. Is it just affecting the people out on the lakes, you know, recreational boaters or mariners, or is it affecting also people downstream on the land?
Right, the lake is where things all get started, so it is a factor for mariners out there, people on the water. But if the wind pattern is right, a snow shower can develop over a lake and be pushed by the wind ashore somewhere. And if it happens to be a city, say like Buffalo, New York, they're famous for getting this, where snow showers will develop over the lake and then they'll be pushed ashore. The snow showers gather their strength from the lake, so they can't hold together for long once they move inland. But there is that time when they are mature over the lake, then they blow ashore, where they can be dumping a lot of snow before they peter out over the land.
This first image that we're going to show is pretty interesting. It pretty much shows how a snow shower develops. You want to just kind of explain that in brief to the viewers there, what we're looking at here?
Sure. This is an idealized sketch, a cross-section showing a body of comparatively warm water. Again, we're not talking about 80 degrees for the water necessarily, but simply warmer in contrast to the cold wintertime air above the water. And we can see some puffy cumulus clouds there developing. In that little cartoon, then snow falling out of them. And the arrow there represents the ambient or background wind pattern that can take some clouds that develop over the water because the air is over the water and then pushes it over the land. And that can lead to snow showers moving inland.
Okay. And the second image actually shows a satellite picture of some snow showers over Lake Superior, and I just thought this was an impressive image. Can you explain a little bit about what's going on there?
Oh, this is a very striking image. Yes, it shows Lake Superior there, also the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And what we've got today, when this picture was taken, was actually a very quiet weather day if it weren't for these Great Lakes. You can see a lot of the ground. This is a visible satellite image, and you can see that skies would be clear except for clouds which get going over the lakes. And the wind pattern, remember back from the last picture we saw, that arrow showing where the wind blows, that's important. The wind pattern in this picture is from the northwest blowing to the southeast. And we have lines of snow showers. Each individual snow shower is followed by another one right behind it, and the net effect is a long train of snow showers. We have several parallel bands of snow showers all moving from northwest to southeast. You can see on the far northwestern edge of Lake Superior, there's no snow showers there. It takes a snow shower a while to get going. The lake has to fuel the air, get it moist, get it moving before the snow shower develops. And then it moves downstream, and by the time it hits upper Michigan, it's dumping some snow. Another interesting thing about this, remember earlier I said showers are real spotty. If you were driving in a car, you could go from sunshine to snow to sunshine. You notice how these stripes of snow showers have some gaps in between them. And that's exactly what we're talking about. If you were driving from east to west along the UP there, you might encounter a heavy snow shower and then very good visibility only a couple miles later. That's the nature of snow showers.
Well, the people up in Marquette must be getting some snow showers in that image at that time. This image actually brings up some visual images of colder air riding over the Alaska Peninsula for me when I'm looking at satellite imagery, where you have the exact same thing happening. You have cold air riding over the Alaska Peninsula, and like you said, it takes a while for those snow showers to get developing, but you know, you might be maybe 150 to 100 miles on the lee side of the Alaska Peninsula, and it's clear. and you get, you know, beyond 100 miles, and you get these snow showers and these parallel banding, you know, snow showers that just ride for hundreds of miles into the North Pacific. So this is just a striking image that has brought up a lot of past weather experiences for me. How much snow can people get out of, you know, these lake effect snow showers?
Well, that's a very good question, because this can have a huge impact. Good snow showers caused by lake effect can produce snow in excess of 1 inch an hour. And the trick is, it can keep going for many hours. And that's where the issue lies, because if the snow showers are not moving around, you can have snow showers, a band of snow showers, blowing along a lake and then hitting a certain town, let's say, and it just keeps on going there again and again. You can get snowfalls into the several inches, even a foot or more over the course of a day or two is certainly a possibility. One thing that's very important, though, is the ambient wind direction. Because imagine holding a garden hose, let's say, and you're spraying water around. Imagine just moving your hands a little bit can yield quite a change in where the water goes in your garden. Similarly, a long band of snow showers can have a great variance in where it's impacting the land, just based on a couple of degrees of the compass change in wind direction. So that's a critical thing.
This radar picture that we're going to show next is pretty striking as well. And you're talking about lake effect snow. What are we looking at here?
This is the kind of scenario where Buffalo, New York can find itself buried. What we're looking at here is westerly winds. This is actually a radar picture. It's not a satellite image, but returns from a weather radar, showing a single dominant snow band along Lake Erie moving from west to east. And notice how on the eastern shore of the lake there, if you were to go north or south of the snow band, you'd be in clear skies. But if you get under the main core of that snow shower, you probably have, you know, a quarter-mile visibility in heavy snow. And Buffalo, I believe it was last winter, racked up some fantastic totals because this kind of pattern set up and it just wouldn't go away for a few days.
I remember that well. We're going to cut you off here. We'll come back for part 2.
Part 2.
And we'll talk about lake effect snow showers in Alaska.
That sounds great, Jim.
And come back and join us for part 2, everyone.
Welcome back, and now let's take a look at our forecast for southeast Alaska, the marine forecast that is, for Wednesday. And as you can see in the southern inside waters, west winds about 10 to 20 knots, north winds 20 knots through that Lynn Canal Glacier Bay area. In the outside waters, you have northwest winds 30 knots in the southern outside waters to 25 knots as we move a little bit further north off the coast of Sitka there, and west winds 20 knots along that east Gulf Coast. Taking a look at the area for Thursday, winds in the southern inside waters are going to become more southeasterly, about 20 knots. Winds are going to remain northerly 20 knots down Lynn Canal and Glacier Bay, as they typically do. West winds 20 knots in the southern outside waters to 25 knots off the coast of Sitka there. And then winds, they're initially going to be more southwest and then becoming southeasterly in the evening hours along that east Gulf Coast at 20 knots. For the south central region, expect your winds to be out of the southeast about 20 to 25 knots from the north Gulf Coast on up into Prince William Sound. 35 knots east of the Barren Islands, southwest winds 25 knots south of Kodiak Island with 20 knots southwesterlies up Shelikof Strait. Winds generally light and variable in the Cook Inlet region as well as down to the Augustine Island area. For Thursday, expect your winds to drop off from Prince William Sound to 15 knots and become pretty much southwesterly everywhere else. 30 knots across Kodiak Island, still 20 knots in the Shelikof Strait area. 30 knots east of the Barren Islands to 25 knots along the North Gulf Coast. 20 knots from Augustine on up to the southern Cook Inlet with 15 knot southwesterly winds in the northern Cook Inlet region. Taking a look at the Alaska Peninsula for Wednesday, expect your winds to be out of the southwest, 40 knots south of the Alaska Peninsula, 35 knots on the north side of the Alaska Peninsula with 25 knot westerly winds in the Bristol Bay area. For Thursday, winds will be southwest 30 knots in Bristol Bay, southwest winds 30 knots over the western Alaska Peninsula, both on the north and south side, with southwest winds 35 knots south of the eastern Alaska Peninsula. For the Aleutian Islands on Wednesday, southwest winds basically from Amchitka east to the Unalaska area, about 40 to 45 knots across the entire region, and south winds 40 knots in that Shemya area. Taking a look at the area for Thursday, the forecast for Thursday, west winds 35 knots over the western Aleutian Islands near Shemya, with winds out of the southwest over the remainder of the Aleutian Islands, about 45 knots over the Amchitka area to Adak and Atka, to 40 knots over the Nikolsky region, with 40 knots north of the eastern Aleutian Islands and 25 knots on the south side there. For the Bering Sea coastal waters, expect your winds to be southeast 25 knots in the Pribilof Islands. A varied wind here over the Nunivak Island area in the Kuskokwim Bay region, 30 knots out of the southwest northeast winds out of the Hooper Bay area at 30 knots, 35 knot northeasterly winds in the St. Lawrence Island region, and 35 knot winds out of the east over the St. Matthew Island waters. On Thursday, we'll see the wind directions pretty much remain the same. 25 to 35 knot winds from St. Lawrence Island down to the St. Matthew Island region. South winds 40 knots in the Pribilof Islands with southwest winds 35 knots in the Kuskokwim Bay area. Taking a look at the Arctic coastal waters, expect your winds to be out of the northeast about 25 knots outside of Kotzebue Sound to northeast 15 to 20 knots over the western Arctic coastal waters with northeast winds 10 knots over the remainder of the Arctic coast. On Thursday, winds will remain generally northeast over the Arctic coast from Barrow east at 10 knots, northeast 20 knots over the Point Lay region with north to northeast winds 25 knots as we go from Cape Lisbon right on down to outside of Kotzebue Sound. And for a very quick recap, we do have a high wind warning that should be expiring within the next hour over the western Aleutian Islands. We have this large low pressure system in the Bering Sea with a front to the Bering Sea coast tonight, snow into the Bristol Bay region as well as the Kuskokwim Delta, rain across the Alaska Peninsula to Kodiak Island, and also expect some snow showers over the interior regions from the Kuskokwim Valley right on up into the Tanana Valley. But we're about out of time for the show this evening. Thank you for watching and have a good evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.